Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meetup, Content Collective meetup for the month of May. So today, I want to introduce Jasmita. Jasmita is a dear friend. We go back a very long way. Today, she's going to talk about her experiences of visual storytelling. She's a very, very seasoned broadcast and digital media professional with over 17 years of experience. She's worked in, news channels like Times Now, NDTV 24/7, NDTV Worldwide, NDTV Good Times, and she has created visual content across news, lifestyle, and education. So her experience in this field is undeniable and very, very rich, and we all hope to learn a lot from her experiences. She is also now very, very deeply embedded with the with academics, and she's a visiting professor at Manav Rachna, and she's also trying to build a course there with him, and she probably can talk about it more and probably get your support as a in this community. She's currently doing a freelance digital strategy and content consultancy in the edtech space. She's also the head of media and design for Manav Rachna schools, and she's, like I said, trying to build future ready capabilities for to empower children with future skills. And I think media and communication is a very especially in our digital age, media and communication is a very, very important field that we are in. So I've already taken about 5. I know Jasmita has a lot to share, so I'll hand it over to her. Jasmita, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. And over to you.
Thank you, Reuben. Thanks everyone. Hi, everybody. But Reuben, of course, I spent too much time speaking about what I've been doing. But then again, if you do know people in the media industry, active media spaces, you will know that there is, for some reason, always a lot to talk about. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be a lot to talk about. Now, before I even begin, what we are going to speak about today, I just want to, right at the beginning, uh, mention that the conversation or the language that I'll be using will be very, very bolchal wali bhasha, right? What we say, very conversational. I will try to keep it as less jargon as possible, so as much jargon free as possible. So I have tried to simplify my experiences so that they benefit people who are, not just media people, because media people would really know a lot of what I'm speaking about today. People who are television producers, people who are digital producers. So yeah, so the intention is to keep it as simple as possible. So as we go along, and please feel free to, if you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat box, and I'm sure Bhumika Reuben will help us take them towards the end of the session. Right. So what are we talking about today? When Reuben, Bhumika, and myself, we were discussing this particular talk, and I was finding it a little difficult to focus on what it is that I need to speak about, or I could speak about. But I knew I had to bring it down, just like any good content creator or storyteller. You need to focus on stuff. So I brought it down to visual storytelling for two reasons primarily. One, the fact that it's very close to my heart. I absolutely adore doing it. I've been doing it for years now, and I would not change that for anything. And second, it is the biggest trend that 2020 will ever see. We've been seeing it for a couple of years, but it's only going to grow further. So let's get right into this. Now, okay, just one moment. Now, just to set the context, right, because now I look at marketing, this for me sums it up. Marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but about the stories you tell. You could be making stuff which, honestly is not useful, is not stuff people are looking for, is probably not even that good. But if you've got a good story to tell, you're going to grab the eyeballs that you need for it. Before we move into the experience sharing aspects, we often speak about why videos. What is this whole fuss about videos? Why is everybody talking about finding video editors? The number of job openings I see for video editors from home and graphic designers, it's all gone up considerably in the last 2 years. Now, a couple of insights here. Globally, we're looking at online videos going up to almost 82% of the internet traffic. People are going to be looking for good quality video content. If you look at India, for instance, 1 out of 3 Indians watches videos online. That itself, when you look at the kind of population that we're talking about here, is huge, right? Again, a very important aspect, the point number 2, which I've put here. Viewers retain 95% of a message. Now, this, of course, has a lot to do with who these viewers are. And as we are aware, most of our viewers are people who are under 40 years of age. They comprise for more than 60% of our viewership, the youth. So they don't wish to read as much as they wish to watch. Interesting data point when I was doing my research was that actually more than 37%. This was a study done, I think, last year at some point. So perhaps this has also changed marginally. But more than 37% of online video views in India is coming from rural areas. Definitely TikTok has a great role to play in this space, but pre the ban and all of that. But it's amazing that just, I find this one fact so amazing because it just shows so much opportunity for creation, right? And of course, the age bracket, which I was talking about. Now, so there's this interesting study which perhaps some of you have already read or know about, where Google has come up with what are the main micro moments when it comes to consumer behavior or people watching content. So here I've just found this one bit to keep it simple. Why do people watch video content or even content per se? It could be for pleasure, it could be to feel empowered, it's for purpose, where you want to progress, or perhaps an educational course that you sign up for where you look at their different video tutorials, and of course to connect and bond, right? Which is, LinkedIn or your other social platforms. Pleasure is pleasure viewing. I mean, any platform that you would pick up here, perhaps on social media or otherwise. And of course, when you talk about empowering, if I was to take one example that comes top of mind is change.org, right? So that's a platform people go to feel more in charge of, express what they feel, start petitions, right? Stuff like that. If you want to know more about it, you can just go to Think with Google and you can look up more on this. Okay, so there is this one video, very interesting video that I found. I just take about a minute to play this. It was a study experiment, an experiment that was done in 40s by two scientists, and all they did was created this animation, short animation, which post which they asked people to to probably just do some finding study and what did they really observe. So I'll just play that and then we'll continue. Okay, 1 second. I think there is a, okay, it is. Right. So, we saw this video right now. Uh, there was practically nothing in terms of sound, the essential traits, no script, no audio, nothing at all. But we just saw a story happening. Uh, if there is anyone who felt that a story did not happen, perhaps you could look it up one more time. But there was a complete storytelling in place in this little animated video where perhaps people, you could see emotion, I could see drama, I could see aggression. There were so many emotions that one could really see through this 1 minute, and which is why brings me back to the thought that Indians per se and in general humans, right, are hardwired for stories. It's part of our evolution. We have grown up on stories. Stories are the best way to share knowledge, and we're just so made for it. Humans as a race are made for storytelling, right? Now, if I move up to the next slide. Now, so storytelling, like I was talking about, we are made for stories. We're hardwired for stories. What is it that really determines video storytelling? Top of mind is what purpose, audience, platform, of course, yeah, which medium you want the story to play out on. What is the genre that it belongs to? Is it a news story? Is it a documentary? Is it a political story? Is it a business, lifestyle, fashion, whatever, right? So, and of course, uh, what is the kind of monies that you're looking at when you're looking at creating a story that makes an impact? Anything else that I were to add here? To me, they would be, of course, goes without saying, visuals, sound, and words. So I have been a video producer for whatever, 16, 17 years of my life. Or if I was to, probably look at, remove the bit with edtech towards the last 3, 4 years. But yes, about 12 to 14 years I've spent in active video production where all video producers, these are the kind of questions we ask ourselves. So these are the kind of questions that anybody should ask themselves before you create any piece of video content, especially in a market like today, which is so crowded. So, to get visibility is not just SEO, it's also good quality content, right? So does my viewer need it or does he want it, right? So that differentiation is critical to understand. Can my audience relate to it? To me, this is the number one, this is the first question I have always asked myself, that can I, when I look at something, can I say, oh yeah, I agree with this, oh yes, it happened with me, I feel the same way. So is it relatable, or does it make me angry? Is it a political story? Does it make me angry? It wants to make me express. Is it a video which is about the state of, say, female feticide in India? It makes me sad and it makes me angry both. So very important to understand how video content that we look at creating for any business, it could be a B2B company, it could be B2C, of course, but even B2B organizations, it's important to know if your audience can relate to it and would want something like that. And lastly, in countering to the first question, there may not be a need for it. Very often we are faced with situations where we don't really need video content. We are probably the world's best brand to reckon with. We are powerful, we are known, we have everything that we need. But will it still help me go that extra mile? Will it keep my customers to be more loyal with me? So that's where video storytelling really, really makes a great impact on businesses. Uh, so, what I have done is I have divided the rest of the talk into chunks of the experience that I personally have had with various organizations that I've worked with, or rather various genres that I have looked at from the beginning, and what are the kind of learnings that I had from each genre, because of course they were immense. I've tried to bring it down to a few for the benefit of everybody on this chat, right? So from the beginning, news and current affairs was a genre that I started my professional career with. And, I spent easily about a good 8 to 10 years in that space of news and current affairs, which was a lot of documentary filmmaking, a lot of news content, news video content. So news reports were a key part of the KRAs for all of us. We were young producers who were trained to create compelling news video content for the organizations that we were working with. Five Ws and one H. How do you bring out, how do you write to visuals? How do you use visuals to tell a story effectively, in sync with the kind of words that the scriptwriter or the copywriter is putting down? How is the story sourced really, right? So all of that went on to making us news producers in many ways, and keeping a couple of very, very important things in mind. uh, you know, who is my news report meant for? What is the kind of how much can I experiment with a news report? Because we were told, we were working in a very structured environment. When you work with a news organization, especially television, and I'm talking about in 2000, way back in 2005, you were given a structured format, and you were, for news reports, you were asked to follow a certain format. But there was still this little kida that always existed, for me, a lot of my colleagues, friends, in the space of how could we do something which could be a tad different while still aligning with the guides that we were trained for, right? And we realized we could do that a lot with feature stories. So after a couple of years in the news, working in the active news reporting space, where I used to produce a lot of video content for the news hour back then. It was the primetime show run by Arnab Goswami in 2004, when the channel was launched, of 2005. And then I moved into doing a lot of feature content, where I always wished to do it. And of course, the organization was took heed to my requests that I had made after a couple of years in news, for my own growth. And I moved into something which was the features team, which was creating content of all kinds, right? So there was food content, there was lifestyle content, there was entertainment content. So I tied myself with this one series that I started working on, which was called Heart of the Matter, which was a current affairs, a documentary style uh, video series, but based on, mostly on current affairs, right? So perhaps the big news of the month, or the topic of the month, we would pick it up, and then we would, look at the entire aspect of, from research to the final airing of that half hour. So these were half hour long form content formats that we were looking at, which were just immensely satisfying. It meant, 32 hours, 32-hour days for all of us, perhaps sometimes longer, but they just were very, very satisfying to me in my journey. An example that I can take here is also, about how news is addictive. People who are here, I can see a couple of my friends who are here from the news space on this call today. They know what I mean when I say news is addictive. You tend to miss it. You tend to miss the kind of pace that it brings with it. Uh, there's a little bit of a funny anecdote here with respect to the 2005 Mumbai floods that happened. 2005, yes. So we had joined, Times Now back then, and we were working. However, the channel had not launched as yet. So we had joined in the pre-launch phase, and there was we were people who were freshers, hired right out of college, and we joined the organization waiting for the channel to launch. So trainings were happening, dry runs were on. During the course of dry runs, Mumbai saw this massive, massive flood. Right, for people who know about the story from back then, Reuben, of course, was very much part of this whole experience that we all had. Uh, what we did was, we were in the dry run phase, and we were told by our seniors to look at Mumbai floods as a case study to run breaking news. And so I don't want to elaborate further on this, because that could just be an entire talk in itself. But that one day, by the time the day ended, a lot of us had forgotten that the channel was off air. The way we were 100% into it, the speed with which we were creating content, the accuracy which we were looking at visuals, the kind of screening that we were trying to do with the kind of visual content that was coming in, through downlinks and uplinks, it was like we were actually live and we were actually on air. Except it didn't matter to us back then that the only people who could see what we were doing was inside the walls of the channel, in the screens inside. So what I mean to say here is that news as a genre is addictive. There is so much scope of content and storytelling, because that is really the genre that teaches people and is the fourth pillar per se, right? So couple of learnings through this experience in news and genres that I did in news genre is, very importantly, with great power comes great responsibility. I think this is relevant more so today, where we are looking at a time when there seems to be journalism seems to be on tenterhooks, right? So we learned this. This was my learning, that yes, you have a wide reach. You're a news channel. You will always have a lot of people watching you, but that comes with a promise to do other things, right? A promise of being objective, of being neutral as much as possible. Giving the viewer a new experience. This is something Times Now taught us, because till then there were not too many private channels in the market out there. So, of course, something new, something very different visually, it just grabbed a lot of eyeballs, not just in TRPs, but in conversations in general, right? Uh, Genre specific content for a small but loyal audience. We forget this. In news channels, we seem to forget this, where we are looking at just covering big stories. Oh, this is a story, this is the only thing that matters to us. But we should really not overlook the smaller stories, which we have an audience for. It may not be TRP content, but it's important content. And it's important to give them that content to watch, right? And of course, a lot of points are self-explanatory, but since it was my first job and it was in a broadcast station, the best learning for me here was that there is nothing better than teamwork. We all say it, we all talk about it, we all read about it, quotes, motivational stuff, but it's true. For me, it was actually living it, where the reporter on ground could shoot the best story, but if it didn't follow the chain that it needed to, then it would really make no difference. It would just lie in one tape, or in one CD, or rather in one chip in the video library of some broadcast station, right? Uh, so moving on to the next phase. Again, this was one of the most exciting phases for me, where I had by this time uh, gained the maturity of a news producer, and I was not a newbie really in that space. I knew more. I felt more. I really wanted to do stuff which was impactful. So I started my journey with NDTV then, and that's when we realized that. Uh, we need organizations, we need broadcasters to tell people stories that matter, right? It was important. It's perhaps not as flashy, it's definitely not as entertaining, but it's important, because really that's where we belong, that's where the media or journalism really is. So here we were talking about video stories that were not really spoken about. I traveled over a lot of on ground election stories. I traveled across the country, where, south, west, north, of course, in the east as well. We traveled different parts to cover the 2009 general elections at that time, where we were looking at bringing on ground stories to the homes of the viewer through television. Election analysis, of course, but more about what people really wanted. Of course, that is also the forte of the organization. NDTV as an organization feels very strongly about, the grassroots viewer, the grassroots, what is it that they want, what is it that their aspirations are. So we traveled across the length and breadth. Uh, Very, very exciting stories from back then. When I think back now, reminiscing them, had a great time, in Bihar, atop At that time, Lalu Yadav, the then Chief Minister, atop his bus, rallying at about 2 a.m. in the morning with all their supporters, or meeting Prakash Karat, or covering Mayawati's rally, where there was so much scope for visual storytelling, because it was more like a mela. So we, capturing visuals, putting them together as very interesting and some ways also entertaining content formats, right? And of course, the third aspect here is that one thing that I really spent a lot of time being involved in and was symbolic in my life experience was the challenge of live storytelling. So now, if I can link that to the 2009 terror attacks, right, that happened in Mumbai. I was with NDTV 24/7 in the Mumbai office back then, and me and my colleagues, we were at multiple locations during those 62 hours of the attack as it happened, right? With our reporters, of course, our reporters who were the face of the channels were there. We were the producers who are ensuring the storytelling happens the way it is. One of the biggest challenge of live storytelling for me at that time was um, what to show and what not to show, right? So there's a lot that happens on ground. We all know, I'm sure everybody who's not from the media fraternity also understands there's a lot that really goes on behind the camera. But there's a lot we could show, but do we really need to show it? Can we hold something back? Would it be detrimental to showing something which perhaps is unnecessary? It could trigger more emotions. It could trigger a response which is really not required and is not really something that our country needs at a certain time, right? So this was a very important time where we were producing live content, live video content from location at Taj, at Trident. We were conducting live video shows with our anchors. So how the camera persons were. So there was a lot of coordination that was required. There was a lot of cutting to black also that happened, where we really could not show stuff that we saw, right? So there was this human side to this. And another example, just to take away from the seriousness of this particular incident, was the IPL auction in Goa, right? So the first IPL auction that we went to shoot in Goa, of course, very glitzy, very glamorous, who's who of the IPL, of course, being the first. There was a lot of buzz around the IPL back then. Uh, it was a great experience for me, because it really brought a chance to talk about sports and entertainment in the same breath. It brought the two together in many ways. So it was something which was, this was one incident where everything went wrong. Our cameras failed. Uh, Again, people who are from the TV channel space know what this feels like. Uh, the cameras failed. We could not find the resources because it was in Goa. Hiring certain resources was tough. So we really had to understand the whole Great Indian Jugaad to get our visual content in place, to create our BTS content, to create the visual stories, backstories with what was really happening, the after parties. So there were a lot of challenges that came up for this particular event. But of course, as always, we learned and we moved on with it. So what were those learnings through this particular phase, right? Writing to visuals, like I said, humanizing stories. One bit that I still use when I interact with slightly younger content creators or people who are making some amazing content now, but it stays. This rule stays. Every time you create a video, you start with your best shot and you end with your second best. There is no other way. It has to be this. It could be a bite. It could be it could be that, but you have to start with your best, right? Never underestimate the power of sound. We saw this everywhere. I mean, in a lot during the live storytelling that was happening, say from Taj, where there were, as the attacks were happening, the sound of the gunshots and everything else were, they just spoke in themselves, right? So ambient sound is something we realized. Uh, Graphics alone can bring a story alive. A dear friend who's on the call again right now, graphics is something that we used to bring together the entire, say the story of what Ajmal Kasab's interrogation was in the court, for instance. Nobody had visuals for it. A lot of stuff was, of course, embargoed. So one couldn't really use visuals. So that's when graphics came into play, and how the entire proceedings is something we, created animated graphics back then and showed the entire thing, or perhaps even reconstruction, use of reconstruction as a medium of storytelling, right? Important aspect here for all my video editor friends and for all producers, we'll all agree. When in trouble, I learned that the one person who is your magician then is your video editor. Because, like I said, at least 99% of the time, because the person is the last mile before you really go into, before it's broadcast. So if there's someone who can create magic and help you, it's them. So make sure they're always your friends, right? Now, uh, what happened after this was I moved into a little bit of consulting, right, with an organization called NDTV Worldwide back then, which was into turnkey operations for channel setups, where we were providing end-to-end, technical, operational, and content and design services. So, there I did a lot of content strategy for them, and it was my first encounter with training people to create video content. So far it was me who was doing it hands on, but understanding the challenges and pressures of training somebody to create content, understanding when to hold back and when not to jump in, which is a very important skill that I needed to learn. Because for me it was always about, if I I'd rather just finish it off. I'd rather just do it. But the pleasure of waiting and to see new ideas through others, that was something I learned, during this phase. We worked with a lot of regional players across India, regional channels, regional markets. Named a few here. There were a couple more like Mathrubhumi, there was Sentinel in Assam, there was Sakshi TV in Hyderabad. So we worked with a lot of regional news channels, and of course we worked with one or two international projects that I used to manage back then. One was for a channel in Bangladesh, and one was in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, where we helped them with a lot of trainings. We were also I was also part of the video storytelling aspects, where I got a chance to actually travel to the through the length and breadth of Malaysia. It is a small country, right? So looking for video stories in their, in their local, in smaller towns, in the villages, in the other smaller cities. So we had a chance, me and my video editor, to really travel, me and my camera person, apologies, to travel through the cities and to find stories that really matter to people there. But how did we figure out what mattered, right, to people? Uh, that's when I learned the importance of on-ground research in a new market. So far we were used to working in spaces where we knew our target audience, who was the video meant for, who was going to hear this story. So here what we did was, we I understood the importance of focus group discussions, for instance. What is it that people really want to see? What is it that they want to watch? What are the issues that matter to them? And of course, uh, I don't think it's very surprising, but we realized that the issues are practically the same globally. Everybody, uh, the same things matter to the human race, whether we're sitting here or in another country, right? Of course, very important learnings on the difference in visual storytelling when it comes to regional content versus national news channels. Regionally, there were very local stories that needed to be told, which were important for that city, for perhaps getting somebody to action a certain cause. Nationally, of course, it was something that mattered to a much larger audience. Of course, politics seems to get prominence in our country nationally most of the time. But regionally, we saw a lot more humane stories. That was one big finding, that uh, what what was happening within the lives of the people in a city or in a particular state was very important to regional channels. So this was again an important learning. uh, like I said, it was my first stint with training. So I did learn that while knowledge sharing is very important, very, very important, but it's not easy. It it took me a lot of training. I had to read a lot, I had to research a lot myself, and to understand that there is a lot of commitment that really goes behind training. And then there is, of course, always a newfound respect for people who train, who teach, because they share knowledge that they know, and they share it in a committed manner. So that's when, an important aspect of learning for me. And because it was a consulting role and a people, project management, I was interacting with editors in chiefs of channels, senior reporters, senior producers of different organizations. Very, very essential life skill that you end up understanding then is that, for me, I've right now for this talk tried to put it into three aspects. Mutual respect, because you do, it's a given, right? And knowledge, because you should be sure of what it is that you bring to the table. So if your knowledge is with your storytelling, your expertise, you will definitely be able to share that. But do understand that the person in front of you comes with a different set of expertise, and respect that, right? And temperament, very important, because earlier, I think that's something that any media producer, any video producer, if they're blessed with a good temperament, I think half the job is done for them, right? Okay, so before we move to the next slide, uh, I hope I'm not short on time. I'll want to play this one video that is something that uh, I've played in a couple of other times for even the students that I've been teaching earlier, a couple of years back. It's an old video. It's about 10, 11 years old. But to me, it is an example of excellent storytelling by the Associated Press. Right? So uh, we'll see this video, and then we can speak about it.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, leader of Al-Qaeda.
Right. So, just to take a short break from me speaking, can anybody, did anybody feel the video was long? It went on and on. Anyone? Maybe you could just raise your hand and that would indicate that you felt it was long. You don't press the raise hand button if you didn't feel the length of the video. So I don't think I see any hands raised. So I'm assuming everybody, yeah, right, Bhumika, right. So, so the video is close to 5 minutes long, right? Now, this itself, I wanted to use this video simply to bring out the aspect, of course, of good storytelling, but also the aspect of, how good quality content will never feel like a burden, right? You never feel that it's just going on and on. The way AP has created this video, of course, the numbers that they put in here, if we even look at the numbers, digital numbers today, it's completely different. But the way they've done the entire storytelling is amazing, right? Okay. Okay, moving on now. I'll try to finish. Ruben, do I have 10 more minutes? Bhumika?
Yes, Jesse, you have about 10 minutes. We can take questions after that also. So another 5 minutes after that. We can take questions.
Sure. Thank you. Right. So, this was the time that I started working with Good Times. And like I've put in the heading itself, that was the biggest realization that yes, fashion, food, entertainment, definitely very glamorous to look at, but the amount of effort that goes into content creation, video content creation, is huge. It is just huge. The need to make things look good is far more challenging in that sense, especially when it comes to, say, the shooting aspect of it, the writing aspect, the editing aspect, all of it put together, right? So that was one. I was looking at the entire digital operations for GT back then for about 2 years, where I was leading their digital footprint. Very, very challenging times, because it was a time when we were making our presence felt in the digital space. Because Good Times as a channel was very well established. It had a very, very loyal consumer base. People came to them for award-winning shows like Band Baja Bride, Kingfisher Calendar, Chakle India, Rocky and Mayur Highway, everything. So it was a channel that everybody wanted to work for also. So here we were trying to create its digital footprint in a more active, involved manner. So this was a very exciting time. The team was very, very young, and again, one of the best times that I've had. We also ended up creating a lot of branded content for digital. So the foray into branded content for digital really happened with GT for me. Uh, Two examples that I've put among the many are, of course, one of the fashion weeks in 2019 and the making of Kingfisher Calendar, the one that I could not travel to the location for, but I was looking at it here. And in fact, because of the entire COVID thing, what the requirements from UB, right, from United Breweries and Kingfisher Group was to go big on digital. They knew that the series is going to play as long form content, half hour every week, at a fixed slot coming in on TV, but they wanted to go digital first. And so we had to create this entire digital first strategy for the first time for the Kingfisher Calendar, full of challenges and learnings as always. Latin India Fashion Week. We'll take a simple example without using names here. We got something very interesting from one of the leading fashion designers as a bite that one of the reporters, who was one of my colleagues, my team, she got it. And we thought that was really interesting content. It would make for good eyeballs, and wasn't particularly, there was nothing wrong with that content, right? Ethically, otherwise. So we decided to put it up. And of course, what followed was a lot of calls from to take it down, as has happened in news earlier many times. But yes, for me, it was the first time when I had to really firefight a situation like this. So, what happened in the end of it, we'll leave for another day. But yes, there was a lot of pressure that was made to image correct and a lot of other things because of a simple slip up in a byte by a very, very popular designer, right? So with GT, my time there, like I said, going digital, it was the time where we had to synergize between the two. So massive learnings out there. Uh, Creating buzzworthy digital content, I realized, you know, that was the time when I realized that when you're looking at creating visual content for digital platforms, you need to look at very, very specific skill sets in people. You cannot have a one size fits all, neither for the platforms nor for the manpower or the human resource that will create this for you. People are coming with the expertise. We need to use that accordingly. So that was that. Uh, of course, the challenges of social media marketing, especially video marketing, here for me were massive because uh, we were not really the first movers on that boat back then. You know, we were a very established TV channel, but digitally we did not really have that advantage of. So creating quality video content, creating video content which was different from what was going on television to suit the needs of the video or the consumer or the viewer on digital handles was something that was challenging. And of course, to find new audiences on digital for us, barring other than our TV audiences, because digital, we were looking at finding the youth as our audience. So a lot of content creation, a lot of changes that happened with respect to that, right? And of course, anybody who's working in the digital space and who's had their time with algorithms, it was my time of realization that they are really not as pathetic or as scary or spiteful as I thought they would be. If we really learn to use them effectively, if there's every algorithm update that Google really comes up with, if we use it in our video content creation, it can go a long way in strengthening what we are really trying to show here. Right? Now, the last 5 minutes from me on my journey in the edtech space, as it has been. If I was to, point out the most challenging phase of my career journey or my career graph, it has to be this. It was a field I had zero knowledge of. I did not know. My children were very young, so I didn't really know so much about schools or teachers or the education system per se, or pedagogy and philosophy, and there are lots of these words that really come up right in the edtech space. So learning via whatever video and all of that. So it was very, very challenging for me to take up this assignment, but I think that's what we talk about, the kida in media people, that unless it challenges you, there's no point taking it up. So I went head on into this project, and I've come out so grateful to have learned massively with my time in Manav Rachna, with the kind of content that we've created for them. We did an entire digital transformation for their schools, right? For the entire network of 8 schools. So the entire digital footprint we tried to change through primarily video storytelling. That was the first point of our approach that we took towards it. Content creation done various formats, specific to different social platforms, specific content for Instagram, for Facebook, for LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, right? So all of that, and multiple formats that we explored. One of the campaigns very close to my heart, which we ran last year, we called it School is Cool Again, right? Of course, there was ambiguity about schools opening, not opening, blah, blah, but we just used this campaign as a brand awareness video marketing campaign, which we ran for a couple of months. And if I can say so, it did make an impact in the lead generation aspect also of marketing when it came to really the time for admissions and all of that, right? And of course, like I said, creating unique social properties. Now, learnings, while it was challenging for me, I still stick to this. It's one of the genres which has immense potential. I think we can see that with the kind of e-learning spaces that have mushroomed during the COVID era as well. But yes, otherwise as well, leading schools who have been there for years, they also need to make their presence felt now. It's not so much really about totally just relying on we were something, right? So there's a lot of reinventing that needs to happen. Uh, if you look at a very well-planned video marketing campaign targeted for brand awareness, it can do wonders. It can really help with the existing parent community and with the potential ones, right? And of course, one thing is collaboration with parents, as I've written here, but really with any internal stakeholders. And it's something that really benefits the space, because eventually, if you look at it, if you ask a simple question to a marketing person, that what is it that brings you conversion, the person will most probably, at least in the school space or even the college or university space, say that conversions happen maximum perhaps through word of mouth, through referrals, through parent referrals, and whatnot. So the word of a parent is really very important to another parent, right? So we really use that one particular underlying thought in the kind of content that we created for them through different verticals. We created stuff like there was social media properties. So there is a vertical called Future Skills and Sustainability, for which, like Reuben was pointing out, I'm working on an entire new department in schools called Media and Design Communication, where we're looking at giving children these future-ready skills, media skills, teaching them that right at the school level, and basically for creative enhancement. So that vertical, we wanted to really bring about the kind of work that they do in the robotic space or in the STEM space. So we created an entire social media property to speak about it, called the STEM Stories. Likewise, we did something called the Shikshak Stories, where we were profiling our own teachers on what they really do outside of being teachers. What is the kind of community work they're involved in? So that was something that really helped the brand, strengthen its presence. It's a very old brand, but it really helped strengthen the presence it had. So I did have a video here, but I think I'm going to skip that. So perhaps we can see it another time, or I'll share the link of this video, right? Now I will wrap up with, I've done a little bit of research, of course. I do, like other video producers, like to read a lot about what kind of video formats are working, what are not working, what are the trends like. What I've done is, after a lot of research, I have tried to put down what I feel is something that I will definitely be working on this year. But yes, if anybody can add value to any of you on the session today, short form social media content. It was rock solid in 2021. It will be rock solid in 2022. We are halfway through. It's here to stay, right? Humanizing stories with empathy and ethics. Now, when we are looking at, when we looked at the data points in the first couple of slides, we have to understand that if you look at just our country here, the Indian viewer, the primary viewer is the youth. It's all under 35. Right? And of course, if you look at a further diversification, you'll also get like a large number otherwise of even younger viewers. So it's very important for them. This generation that we're talking about here is very strongly ingrained in empathy, in value drives, showing support. So content that will really look at promoting all of this, saying things the way they are, not really curtailing information or curtailing a voice. So it's very important for the youth, the generation, or the TG that we're really looking at. So definitely this content will see, video content that brings empathy will see an upward spike. Collaboration with internal stakeholders. So when you look at user generated content, to me, because there is just so much of UGC content right now everywhere, and there's so much of content creators, the market is quite crowded in that sense. A good approach could be to collaborate with internal stakeholders. So again, if I take, for example, in the edtech space, it's teachers, students, parents, principals, other people from the education spaces, experts, professionals, right? But try and look at that, and that should be enough to be the voice of the brand, for campaigns. informative storytelling, anything that's educational is something that's going to work. Everybody's out there to learn and upskill in the current. So big trend for the year. And something that I need to upskill myself more about, but very intrigued by it. But I do have a young member in my team who's immensely bright when it comes to AR and VR video content. We need to experiment more with it. This year has a lot of scope. In the next year, I see a rapid growth on that space, in that space as well. Right? I think that's it from my end, Reuben. Bhumika.
So thank you so much, Jasmita. It was a very insightful session as usual. And thank you, and we'll see you at the next meetup. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jasmita. It was a
Thank
great
you,
session.
Bhumika. Thank you, everyone. I hope it just helped in some way or the other, right?